Hello, and welcome to another segment of Fine Arts Features, the program that highlights members of the faculty and staff of the College of Fine Arts here at Wichita State University. Today, we have a conversation with Dr. Brittany Lockard, Associate Professor of Art History in the School of Art, Design, and Creative Industries. Dr. Lockard received her BA in Art History and English from Vanderbilt University, an MA in Art History from Indiana University, Bloomington, and her PhD in Contemporary Art History from the University of Kansas. Her research interests include body diversity, identity politics, and the social dimensions of food and eating. Her recent work investigates the ways in which depictions of large bodies resonate with cultural constructions of fatness. Lockard has recently presented her work at the Southeastern College Art Conference, Midwest Art History Society, the College Art Association, and the Mid-America Humanities Conference, Bodies, Pleasures, and Spaces. She also serves on the Student and Emerging Professionals Committee of the College Art Association. Without further ado, here is Dr. Lockard. Hello and welcome to another edition of Fine Arts Features. Today we are very happy to have Dr. Brittany Lockard, who is a associate professor of art history in Art History and Creative Industries here at Wichita State University. Brittany has her PhD from the University of Kansas. She has an MA in Art History from Indiana University, and she has her BA in Art History and English from Vanderbilt University. She is, while maybe not a full-fledged native Kansan, she grew up in St. Joe, Missouri, and her mother is from Kansas, so she considers herself a kind of a semi-native. So in a way, she's had this westward trek from Vanderbilt to Indiana to KU. So now she's home in Kansas. So Brittany, welcome.
Thanks.
So I want to ask you a few questions. The first one, tell us who you are. Give us a little bit of your life history up until today.
This is probably one of the hardest questions to answer because I don't find myself that interesting. But I'm an art historian. I love dogs better than most people. All dogs. Never met a dog I didn't like. I enjoy pickles and spicy food. I make my own kimchi. I mean, I don't know what else you want to know about me. I'm obsessed with Kansas City barbecue. I don't know.
Oh, already you and I have several areas of possible strife. What kind of pickles? What kind of pickles?
Sour or spicy.
Ooh, I'm a bread and butter pickle guy myself, but
I mean, I make those too because my grandma likes them.
But and you make your own sauerkraut, you said? I know you said kimchi.
Kimchi. I have made sauerkraut. That one takes so long that it doesn't feel worthwhile.
Yeah.
You have to let it sit for weeks. I could just go to the store.
Yeah. It's a little bit like making a pumpkin pie. You have to make it from homemade canned pumpkin.
Yeah.
That's one thing you don't make that's homemade. So you are a Midwesterner and you have spent a lot of time in the Midwest, but how expansive is your breadth and depth of travel and so forth?
Well, it's pretty good. My parents really love to travel, so they took us to Germany and the Virgin Islands and England and a lot of places when I was a kid. And then I was fortunate enough to do a couple of study abroads. So I went on one and lived in Florence, Italy as an undergrad. And then I taught on two different ones for KU. So one was in London and then in Edinburgh. and one was half the semester in Florence and half in Paris, which is not a bad gig if you can get it. So,
well, Florence ain't so bad either.
yeah, no, but none of that was a real hardship on me. And I learned to order in French by pointing at things. So I have just a smattering of French.
Oh, how's your Italian?
Oh, me lo cavo.
So what's your favorite part of Florence? And the reason I'm asking that is because I've been to Paris. I have lived in Germany, but there's something about Florence. There's just something about Florence being the seat of the Renaissance.
I have two favorites. When I went as a teacher, I had my own apartment and on Via Zanetti. No, it was Zenobia. And I lived above a bakery. So I had no alarm clock. I would just wake up and smell pastries. So I'm very fond of that bakery. But I also like the north side that's less touristy and they have all the flower markets. And I mean, you talk to actual Italians there, not just people who are on vacation. So that's
yeah, not just tourists.
Yeah. I mean, not that tourists are bad. I also love tourists.
Yeah. So tell me about why art history? What was it about your growth and development and so forth that pointed you in the direction of art history?
Well, my dad was an amateur painter, and I always enjoyed watching him do that and smelling the paint. Um, and we went, I mean, on those trips, we obviously went to a lot of museums. And then when I was a freshman in college, I was not a model student. I was so excited to not have to go to class that I skipped many things. Please don't tell my family. But art history
or your students.
Yes, student, don't do that. It's a bad choice. It tanked my GPA for my whole career. But the one class I never skipped was art history because I loved it so much. Shout out to Dr. Leonard Folgeret, who remembered me, by the way. I had one class with him when I was a freshman in college, and he remembered me 10 years later, and the girl I used to sit with. It was very impressive.
Wow.
Wow.
So are you yourself, did you ever take up the brush or the clay or anything, or? Yeah,
you have to do studio hours to get an art history degree, just like studio majors have to do art history. And I worked my tail off for all those classes and never achieved anything better than a B. I worked so hard. It's not a gift. It's not a gift that I have. And in fact, I saved some of my undergraduate ceramics to keep me humble because I do studio visits with our grad students. And whenever I'm like, this is terrible, I'm just like, oh no, I remember what my stuff looked like.
So I think you may have partially answered this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So your approach to art history, you love it not because it is the history of art per se, but it is the study of history through art. Is that a fair way of saying it?
Yeah. I mean, I think I say this in my intro survey classes, but the only thing that humans do that no other mammals do is make art. I mean, we give paintbrushes to elephants and lemurs and penguins and all kinds of animals, and they'll play with them, but we did it on our own. And I think that, not just the visual arts, but art in general is just, it's the true story of humanity. It's all our obsessions and the things we're afraid of and our dark moments and our love and spirituality. It's all there.
Wow. So this is probably going to be a place where we edit because I just have a phone call that.
Sure, no problem.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, I'm going to drink some coffee while you're.
Okay. I'm actually turning my phone off. All right. So we were talking about your concept of art history. Say that again. You tell your classes that art is the only thing that we do that other animals do not do.
Right? They communicate, they have language, they make tools, like those monkeys that use sticks to get termites. They lie, like we do, you know.
Yeah.
They love, they grieve, they do everything we do, but they don't make art, and we do.
So the one concept that we have mastered that no other animal has, I suppose, is the metaphor.
Yeah.
Is that another way of putting it?
Yeah, that's also fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the reason I ask that, I know that your research interests transcend just works of art. Your research interests include body diversity and identity politics. So that is those interests utilize art and art history and not history in the sense art criticism and art expression in a way that is not as traditional as somebody who studies the classical period only and so forth. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think, like most people, I'm interested in a lot of things. And I ended up getting one of my minors is in women's studies, women and gender studies. And a lot of the concepts from those kind of theories or philosophies trickle down eventually. And I was just really interested in them. And it all came at a time in my life where, well, this is how I got interested in body diversity, is because I was trying to find the perfect diet. And I was like, well, I'm going to research this. And I kept researching and I couldn't find anything that worked. Like none of the results were what I was looking for. And I sort of stumbled into fat studies, and it made me so angry because it was so contradictory to everything that we accept as like common sense or common knowledge. And I was certain that those authors were incorrect. So I was trying to prove them wrong. And it turns out I was wrong. And that is one of the things I love about scholarship or knowledge or learning in general. And that's sort of how I stumbled onto that. And I was already interested. I was primarily drawn to artwork that depicted the human form anyway. So it just was kind of a natural, those two things kind of went hand in hand.
So why higher ed?
Because it is literally the only job you can find where you get to just talk about the weird stuff that you love, and people have to pay attention and take notes. And you find all the other people that love your weird thing too. And if you're lucky, you can make some people that thought they would hate it like it a little bit.
Yeah. Why WSU? Why Wichita State?
Well, you sort of already prepped this answer for me. I mean, I am a true Midwestern girl, and I've always loved this region, and actually have a bit of a WSU connection because you mentioned my mom is from Kansas, but more specifically Clearwater, which is just outside of Wichita.
Yeah.
And my grandma still lives there, and my uncle actually got his undergraduate degree in engineering from WSU. So I had a lot of positive feelings about this place, and it felt really good to be a part of it and give something back to this region that's been so good to me. And also the faculty were just incredibly welcoming, as were the staff at the Ulrich. Like Bob Workman, who was the director at that time, was just the best. So
the other thing, I think maybe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you can speak to this. Also, Wichita State has a program in art history that's a little bit unique in that it's not organized in the periodic tables, as it were. A class on the Renaissance, a class on the Romantic period, et cetera, et cetera. So talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, that is the
How did
other
that come
thing.
about, and how does?
Um, well, the majority of the students that take our class are studio majors, which I love teaching studio majors because they care. They're already invested in
Yeah.
the art. They love it. They hate it. They have an opinion. But when I was hired, along with Claudia Peterson, the director was also an art historian, and we're sort of rethinking our curriculum and ways to make it more accessible to our students because
Hmm.
a lot of people don't have a background that makes you go, oh, I should take a class on Byzantine art. And we started thinking about the introductory surveys and sort of centering them around concepts that people already had as like a sort of a peg that you could hang this idea on. So we do them. Dr. Peterson teaches one on play, and I teach one on power and propaganda and one on the body.
Mm. Okay.
um, and we're expanding. I'm hoping to get one maybe on fashion going here eventually. And once we had decided to do that, we just thought, why not open it up and um, give our students the background that they need, but also the focus that they want as working artists. And so that's what we did.
Oh, okay.
And that's
S-
definitely how I develop new courses too, is it's stuff that the students want and that they ask me for.
uh, so, what have students asked you for?
History of graphic design.
Okay.
Um, that was a little terrifying for me just because our graphic designers are so competent and so knowledgeable. And I was like, are you sure? Are you sure you want me to do this?
Nah. Mm.
Sculpture. I teach a sculpture class because that's not, it's strangely ignored in a lot of our history
Mm.
classes. What else? Islamic, because we needed non-Western. Also terrifying because that was a personal interest and not something that necessarily I'd had a ton of coursework in.
Yeah.
Um, and
Oh.
I'm taking Arabic lessons now to help with that. So
Ah,
I
that
can,
I did not know. Okay.
yeah, some of it is very useful, like Halant Mutarjma Ya Ustava, which means, are you a translator, ma'am? That's going to be very, very useful for
Okay.
travels. Yeah, so those kinds of courses are usually student driven.
So, what gets you out of bed every morning? What is it that really motivates you?
Well, that's an interesting question. That sort of goes along with what we were just talking about, in that I feel like I've started to get a handle on my field and my career, but there's just so much stuff I still don't know, and so many questions I have, and um, that I want to learn the answers to, and not to mention travel, which is, I mean, it's not possible right now, but there's so many things that
Yeah.
I would like to look at and see in person because, I mean, it's like a recording versus a live performance. It's just not the same.
So, you've been to Paris,
Hmm.
you've been extensively to Florence,
Hmm.
Edinburgh.
Hmm.
Um, where have you not been that you have a burning desire to see and to interact?
My number one is Istanbul. I
Mm.
want to go so badly. I
East
want to,
meets West.
yeah, I want to see the Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque, and they have and the Topkapi Palace, and they have a super cool contemporary art scene. I've heard their donuts are excellent from some of my friends. I don't know. I just really want to go to
And
Istanbul.
Turkish coffee. Let's not forget Turkish
Oh yeah,
coffee.
yeah.
Are you a big coffee drinker?
I like it, but a lot of people don't like me to call it coffee because it's kind of white when I'm done putting in milk.
Okay. Candy in a cup.
Yeah, I mean, no sugar, but a lot of milk.
Oh, okay.
Told you I
Okay.
was from the Midwest. Like milk.
So, other than Istanbul, where would you like to go?
Oh, so many places. So many. I've never done anything in East Asia. And one
Hmm.
of my Collaborators as a specialist in modern Chinese art. I'd love to go, especially with her. And we've been working on an article about a sculptor named Xu Hongfei who does these sculptures of really fat women. He calls them chubby women, but he has a factory with assistants that dress like flight attendants and like sells scarves and perfume and sunglasses. And I want to go so badly. I just think it would be fascinating to meet him and see that factory.
Well, we have scarves and sunglasses here. I mean,
do they have
they were
fat ladies
probably
on them?
manufactured in his factory, but
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like to see the whole production. He's quite a character and just has this persona. Like he likes to be photographed smoking a pipe.
Oh,
Leaning
okay.
on something. Yeah, he's a character.
All right. So, you said you're a dog person.
Mhm.
What kind of dogs do you have?
Well, I love them all. I grew up with Scottish deerhounds. I don't know if you know what those are.
No. What's a Scottish deerhound?
So they're hunting dogs bred to run down deer. So they're similar in appearance to a greyhound, except with a real shaggy coat.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And they're nice, lazy, sweet dogs, but big. And then on my own, I have adopted 2 dogs from the pound. So I had a mysterious black dog named Farkas. I have no idea what he was.
As we say, a Heinz 57.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I currently have she just started barking at a squirrel, in fact, a Great Pyrenees mix.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But she's petite. She's only like 75 pounds. They're much bigger usually.
So let me ask you this. Who is the wisest person you know? And why?
I'm going to say it's not a person, but a group of people.
Okay.
Which is, so the graduate students at KU get really close to each other because it's just a really great, encouraging program. And in fact, we call ourselves the Jayhawk Mafia. Just because whenever we go somewhere, there's a ton of us and, we all know each other. But there's a circle of probably 4 or 5 students that we've just gotten really close. And whenever you need anything, like you need them to edit an email or look at something you've written, or you don't understand how to deal with a student or anything, like you're fighting with your brother, there's just nothing but good advice and help from them. So they've helped me solve some of my hardest problems.
Are they, so you've all graduated, and you've all spread to the 4 winds. Are they also?
One of them is here. One of them is here. The curator at the WAM, Tara-Lee Hedrick, is a proud KU alum as well.
Okay.
And actually TA'd the first class I ever taught at KU with me. So I've known her for a minute.
Yeah. Are the rest of them in academia?
Mostly. So one of them is my collaborator who does Chinese art modernism, and she's at the University of South Carolina. I have a really close friend who actually teaches at Missouri Western in St. Joe, where I grew up. A friend from anthropology that I met on study abroad teaches at Central Washington University. So we're all over.
Okay. So, and this has been perpetrated by Car Talk, the old joke about majoring in art history as the definitive for it being a useless use of your time and your degree and your career, etc. So if you could meet Ray Mayatsi in a dark alley after pummeling him, what would the arguments be that you would give him for why that's a pile of hooey?
Well, I think there are so many. I appreciate other fields, and I'm never going to say that, you know, the arts and humanities are the most important, because we don't cure cancer, like make more corn yields so people can eat or anything like that. But I think when you look back, so much of what we know and understand, and the way that we're able to connect across centuries, really thousands of years, is by looking at art. I mean, we don't know anything about the business moguls of ancient Egypt, but we know about their hopes and dreams and fears from their artwork. And I think that's invaluable. And I think we make life better. I mean, you can think about designers and what a difference a better shaped toothbrush can make, or good packaging can help you pick a new favorite beer. I mean, all of that is art, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so integral and so important to everything that we do that we don't even see it.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Visual cognizance. A wise person once said that the one thing that separates us from all other species on Earth is that mankind is the only species that asks the question why, and that art is the main way that we answer that.
I would agree. And I think we're such a visual society now, and we're so flooded with images. Like, the arts have so many important tools to help you understand what is happening, to help you understand how an image has been constructed to make you feel a certain way, and to pick out messages, because there's always more than one thing in an image or a song or a movie, right? There's always more than one story. And to just not be kind of at the mercy of manipulation, I think we have a really important toolkit there.
Yeah. So if you, with that background, you are a very curious person. You have lived a very diverse life in the sense of where you've gone, what you've done, what you've learned, and so forth. So at this point in your life, if you could learn anything, what would it be?
Oh, is this like a skill or just like a knowledge? Does that make sense?
Either one.
I mean, the thing I've always been most envious of is athleticism. I've never had that. And it's going to sound really strange, but when I was a kid, I knew all these people that would like put one hand on a fence post and then just sort of swing themselves over it. And it always looks so effortless. And I'm, meanwhile stumbling around, stubbing my toes on things and like not being able to do a TikTok dance. So if I could have a skill, it would be athleticism. It seems like a fun way to live. Knowledge, I mean, I'm working on it, but just more languages, because it's like a key that unlocks the whole world that you didn't have access to if you can speak and read another language.
What languages do you speak?
And
when I say speak, I don't mean fluently. I mean, obviously as an art historian, you have to have a certain skill level and a lot, but which ones do you feel good about?
As aforementioned, I have parlo un po' d'italiano. I read, although do not speak French very well. I have enough.
No one except the French speak French very well.
Right. It's not
and all
good.
you have to do is ask a Frenchman and they'll tell you that.
Right. My like one shining consolation was that I spoke enough Italian that they could understand me. I read a little bit of German, although I at this point I definitely need a dictionary because I have not kept up with my practice. I can fumble my way through Latin a little bit, although I can't tell you what case something is in. I just know what it means in a broad sense. And as I aforementioned, I'm working on Arabic, although that is very slow going. It's the hardest one so far.
So let me turn here a little bit. You mentioned that you were you have a research partner, I guess it is,
Mhm.
where you were looking at a specific sculptor in
Mhm.
China. But what about the aesthetic difference between the East and the West in terms of what is art?
Mhm.
I know, for example, in many Eastern cultures, exemplified obviously by China, that to replicate something, when we try to replicate something, that's considered a lesser thing.
Mhm.
But I know the Chinese, it's not. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different viewpoint. China is an interesting example because I think in the West, we in the fine arts would, visual arts, I should say, would probably put like painting as the number one, or maybe sculptural installation. Their number one is writing,
mhm.
because calligraphy is expressive. It's a way that you can tell who someone is. Um, and there's some, I mean, it's really beautiful when executed well. So that's just a different conception, right? And pen and ink drawings were very important historically there, whereas here they're not. But I think the beautiful and also horrible thing about our world is that there's so much interchange and so much global knowledge now that people are exchanging lots of different ideas. And I think our students are really interested in that exchange. Um, yeah, I started reading manga, which are like Japanese comic books, to help me understand them because so many of them make that kind of art, and I just didn't really have a frame of reference for it.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
it did. It did.
Oh.
So let me ask you this. What is the best piece of advice that anyone ever gave you?
Ooh, the best piece of advice. Perfect is the enemy of good, and good is the enemy of finished.
Okay.
I think a lot of people that end up in academia are driven and perfectionists, and I am certainly that. Nothing is ever good enough.
Yeah.
But you have to at some point just let go, or no one ever gets to see what you're doing.
Mm,
So
mm.
that was really useful advice for me.
Okay. On your best day, what are you doing?
As an art historian or as just a person?
Well, it's a two-part question.
Okay. As an art historian, let's say I have a really great class where everyone is into the material and the students are talking, and they're asking questions, and maybe getting me to see something in a new light. It's one of my favorite things about teaching. And then maybe I have a really good conversation with a colleague about their work or my research. And then I sit down to write, and nobody bothers me, and I get some really good writing done. Everything comes easy, and I don't have to, sweat and slave over every phrase. And then I go
Uh,
home. That's my perfect day as an art historian.
okay. As a person,
As a person, I get to sleep as long as I want. I get up. Uh, I get a hot Cheetos burrito from Alejandro's. Shout out to Alejandro's.
uh,
My dog will get on the couch and snuggle me as long as I want. She's not, she's very independent, more like a cat. She usually won't snuggle as much as I want. I read, maybe there's a drag race marathon on. Yeah, just relaxing.
uh,
Stay at
oh,
home.
you mean RuPaul?
Yes, RuPaul's Drag
Ah,
Race.
okay. Now, explain that phenomenon to me.
Oh, are you kidding? They do everything. Like if you like a competition show, they do everything. They sing, they dance, they act, They do fashion. They make their own clothes. They tell jokes. They're incredibly talented, just incredibly talented performers. And it's funny. They're really funny, quick-witted.
Are you watching the latest version?
Of course.
Well, are you rooting for Ross McCorkle? Rose?
I'm on the fence. I think she's that girl, Dean Miller. I think she's calculating. I'm team. I like Simone. I like Olivia Lux. I like Denali. We'll see. I got a lot of favorites from this season. It's still early.
The reason I asked that, you know that Ross is a WSU alum, don't you?
What? All right, now I'm definitely for Rose.
Yes, Ross is a former, I guess he graduated about 6, 7, 8, maybe even 8 years ago. He was a music theater and vocal performance major.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Studied with my wife and studied voice with her, and then starred in a number of our musical theater productions.
Well, you should advertise that on the show.
Well,
where's his shellfish t-shirt?
Yeah. No, but Ross is a very, very talented person. And Rose is a side of him that obviously I'm sitting there on the couch and my wife has a vested interest in it. Mm-hmm. And our daughter is also, who's here with us, she enjoys them and everything. And I had never tried it before. You know, there's a lot of programming I'm not really into. I'm not into bass fishing either.
No.
So I thought I'd just go down that path since you seem passionate about it.
I had no idea. Yeah, he's obviously very talented. He killed it as the gnome in that acting challenge. What a silly part.
Yeah. I like the Scottish costume that he came up with, you know, with the bagpipe in the back and so forth.
Yeah, he's really talented. I had no idea. I had new allegiance.
So, and again, I'm going to switch directions here. On your best day, how you're doing certain things as a professor and certain things as a person. Mm-hmm. How much has COVID changed all of that?
Oh, 100%. 100%. There is no person anymore. There's only a professor.
Yeah.
You know, I like the online course format for certain things. I can expect the students to access more and different kinds of material and put more of the learning in their hands so that they can research more of what they're interested in. But it is extremely time consuming to put together a class that is good and useful and meaningful, which is something that I really strive to do. So, and you don't get the interaction, which is really, as I mentioned, like talking to people about my weird stuff that I like was like the highlight of my teaching career. And I don't get to do that really anymore.
Yeah. So. The uninitiated would think, well, you know, art history, that would be a no-brainer to be able to put online. I mean, you're just talking about and reading about the history of art. So, you know, what's the big deal?
Right.
But it is a big deal.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah. Again, like as I think we talked about a little bit, like the biggest tool in our toolkit is formal analysis, which is looking at and understanding how an image is put together. And that is really hard to teach someone to do if you can't ask them to do it for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you can't say, what does this sculpture tell you about John the Baptist? And then have them say it and then say, well, how did the sculptor make you feel that? Like I can model it, but I can't I can't get people to think through it critically, and that's a really important difference for me.
When you say John the Baptist, you're talking about the Caravaggio?
Oh, actually, because I'm teaching modern and contemporary sculpture, I was thinking Rodin, but Caravaggio is also
Oh, yeah. I
very
I
different. It's a
I
very
am a very I'm a very patient husband. My wife has a long-term ongoing affair. Every time we go to Kansas City, we have to go to the Nelson Adkins. And when we go to the Nelson Adkins, she has to have at least 15 minutes where she's just sitting there looking at John the Baptist.
it's worth it.
Yeah.
If you want Caravaggio in this country, that's one of 7 total paintings. So, yeah, I don't know if you know this, but before I started at WSU, I was working at the Nelson.
I seem to recall something about that. Yeah.
And yeah, that was one of my lunchtime favorites, is I would just go sit in front of different paintings, and it was that one, the Rothko, some of the Thomas Harbentons. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's some really good stuff in there.
Yeah.
Boulevard de Capucines, I could look at that all day.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna ask a really as an art critic and an art historian,
Mhm.
I am a really good opera singer. So I'm kind of like that guy, and there's a movie, and I won't where there's a painter, and someone is asking him to paint. He's commissioning this painter to paint his fiance, and he asks him, "Do you charge by the hour or by the inch?" So I'm not quite that bad a dilettante, but we are now, and this is I'm asking this question in that framework. We are now in an age and era where we have the technological skills to actually 3D print a painting.
Yeah.
So how valuable is that? I mean, to take, let's say, Van Gogh's Starry Night and have a 3D textured, because the brush strokes are important.
I would give my right arm if we could do that. Have a collection for our classes. I mean, just the value for people who are blind or have vision disabilities would be immense. But also, yeah, I mean, there's so many works that are textural that would be intensely helpful for, because you can't, I mean, obviously for conservation reasons, touch most paintings or most sculptures. So it would be an incredible way to have new knowledge about artist techniques, surface texture, which is something that doesn't really photograph well usually. I mean, it would just be invaluable, just invaluable.
But the other end of that digital spectrum, you can access now all of the artwork just about every museum.
Yeah.
You think back to, say, 1950 or even 1970, let's say 50 years ago, if you wanted to see the collection in the Louvre, you had to buy a plane ticket, go to Paris, and walk through the halls of the Louvre. Now, all you have to do is turn on your computer a few clicks away from seeing this work of art up on your computer screen and that work of art up on your computer screen. Why is that such a good thing, and why is it such a terrible thing?
I'm gonna go all in on good thing first. It is unbelievably helpful when you're doing research. Suddenly they're showing things that are too fragile or dangerous to put out. Maybe there's arsenic in the paint or it's a plaster maquette. And suddenly you can see all the versions and models and the drawings and the preparatory studies and really understand how an artist was thinking through a major artwork, which I cannot tell you how useful that is.
Mhm.
I mean, just for an example that's on my mind, because it was part of my module this week, but The Burghers of Calais by Rodin. I don't know if you know that sculpture.
Mm.
Um, but in the original maquette, he had them on like a triumphal arch. And in the final version, they're separable figures. So they're pulled apart so you can walk through them. And just like watching him work through that process of like, what is a public monument? How do we interact with a sculpture is just fascinating to see. And it's also really useful because you get to see what curators and other people are saying about the work, which is really, because I look at discourse as much as I look at images, that's really useful for me.
Mhm.
Plus I live and die for when they have the kids explain stuff. That's like my favorite thing. The MoMA does that and the Tate does that, and listening to children explain art is fantastic because they're not afraid to be wrong. uh, and they're still in touch with that, like the artist is talking to me, which is great. Bad, I don't know. Is there a drawback? Maybe people feel less inclined to go look at things in person, which is still really the ultimately best way that you can see something. Um, it does. I mean, when you look at the materials, you're going to get a certain viewpoint of what a collection is about. So my Islamic art class, I have them look at the collections as they're online for the Met and for the Louvre, and it's a really different approach to the works in those two places. Um, Maybe it's a little overwhelming for some people. But I just think the ability to sort of dig through all the stuff that's in storage and actually get a look at it is very exciting. And they're in the middle of digitizing all of the collections at the Wichita Art Museum right now and updating the catalog, which I'm super excited about as well.
Hmm.
So,
So, in art,
mhm,
there is the aesthetic, and then there is the skill level.
mhm.
How important is one compared to the other? And the reason I asked that, the Picasso exhibit, which was what, about 3 years ago at the Nelson Atkins,
Mhm.
um, that it was basically a show to show the influence of native masks, indigenous masks from literally all over the world. How
Mhm.
much of an influence that was on Picasso, and that was a very revealing show for me because it put a relevance to what he was trying to do with his work
Mhm.
in connection. But along with that exhibit, there was a painting that he had done, I want to say when he was like 12 or 14 something, and it looked just like a work from the Dutch masters.
Yeah. Was it the baptism?
Yes, exactly.
Sweet.
Exactly. So so there are many people who would say that was a superior work of art because the skill level to represent, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas other things that are just strokes of brushes that he did, how can you call that at the same level? Speak to
Yeah.
that.
That is always crazy to me. The person I really get it with is Jackson Pollock.
Yeah.
People think they could do that. Anybody could do that. My kid could do that. And I suspect that you already know the answer to this. It's like improvisational jazz. Like if you don't understand um, rhythm and time signature and key change and all of that, you're going to be a terrible improviser. A Jackson
Mhm.
Pollock painting is a hot mess if you don't know exactly what the paint is going to do and if you can't control exactly where it goes. And I've actually, at one time, I bought just a big bed sheet and a bunch of house paint because that's what he used was industrial paint. And I took my students out with like the stirrers and some paintbrushes, and I was like, all right, everyone, you all said you could do it.
Now
Make
do
me
it.
a Jackson Pollock painting. And what we had, it looked like it just everything bled together and it was a hot mess. So it's important. Both are important. I would say in this current age, skill level is maybe less important, because you could think about somebody like Jeff Koons, for instance, who our audience might know, like the giant puppy made of flowers. That's Jeff Koons, or like
Yeah.
the balloon animals made of steel. He makes nothing. None of the stuff that he makes is produced by him. And even in his early work, it wasn't. It was like Hoover vacuum cleaners and Perspex cases, because the thing that was important was the idea.
Yeah.
So I think art has expanded to such a broad category that there is space for all different kinds of artists. That would be my answer. And I'm drawn to all of them. My favorite ones to think about are the things that I don't understand or that I dislike the first time I see it, because that means there's something happening there that I need to think more about.
It kind of reminds me when I was in Sydney, Australia, a number of years ago at the Biennale or the Biennial. They were selling a T-shirt that said "Modern art equals." Well, I could do that, comma, yeah, but you didn't.
Kind of.
Kind
of.
So I'm going to shift gears again. What is the best thing anyone has ever done for you?
Oh, well, here's an honest answer. So, you're probably aware that my mom died while I was teaching here.
Yes.
And that was extremely hard time for me. And my my circle of wise women, my Jayhawk ladies, really just did so much for me, like beyond what you would expect from a group of friends. Like I had a friend that was driving here every week to help me clean stuff out of my mother's house, because I don't like doing that by myself. I would call people in the middle of the night when I was upset, and they would answer the phone, even though they are grown-ups with jobs and kids. They helped me, keep up with my workload and not get overwhelmed. It was exceptional. It was so kind, and so lovely.
That's nice. That's
Yeah.
nice. We all have good traits and, let's say, less good traits. What virtue would you want to impart to the next generation that you exhibit? What would you like for them to inherit from you?
Well, this is the thing that is, I mean, it's not my job, but what I try to model for my students is, if not self-love, then self-acceptance, because we live in a world that tells people that they're not good enough for lots of different reasons. If you're trans, you're not a real man. If your skin is too dark, you can't be beautiful. You're too fat, you're too thin, your thighs aren't thick enough. I mean, down to like, I just saw a commercial for a product to make the whites of your eyes whiter.
Yeah.
That is the level of microscopic scrutiny that we're all putting ourselves under.
Yeah.
And it's nonsense, just nonsense, powerful nonsense. But if I could just convey to them that you're fine and the world is wrong, that would be the thing that I would most like them to take away.
That's a very difficult thing to try to come to terms with and convince yourself, because Madison Avenue has saturated every aspect of our life. And of course, the whole concept of selling something is telling people that they need it. Well, why do they need it? Because, as you said, they're not tall enough, they're not short enough. They're not thin enough. They're not fat enough, et cetera, et cetera. I once had I was getting my hair done, and the guy doing my hair said, well, if it weren't for the fact that people with straight hair want curly hair and people with curly hair want straight hair, we'd be out of a job.
Yeah. There's a fat activist I like that says that advertising is just taking away your self-esteem and then selling it back to you at a profit.
Yeah.
Which is,
It's a very good way to put it.
It's true to some extent. So
yeah,
it's really hard. And I don't think that anyone is perfect at it. Like, I don't think everyone wakes up in the morning like, I'm the best. But you have to tell yourself that, because no one else is going to say it to you, right? Except maybe your parents, if you're lucky.
So what's the old saying? If I don't love me, who will?
Yeah, if you don't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she's full of wisdom.
So what would you like, final question.
Okay.
What would you like your obituary to say about you?
Wonderful friend, good colleague, excellent professor, best interview Rodney Miller ever had.
Well, you're already 98% there.
Okay, good.
So, Brittany, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed just sitting here and talking with you. It's a treat for me, because I very rarely get the opportunity to just literally sit down and have a conversation with my friends and colleagues, just outside of the office, as it were. And that's what this has been. And I really appreciate it. By the way, I really like your glasses.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And they're very nice.
Enjoy. This is their like second or third year, so I need to get a new pair. So
oh, okay.
Let's give them.
Okay. So any last parting comments or questions or
oh man,
revelations that you would like to impart?
No. I think I think I'm good.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Brittany Lockard, Associate Professor of Music History.
Oh, art history.
What did I say? Music history?
You said music history.
Art history. Art history.
You miss Kelly St. Pierre, don't you?
Oh, I think she's coming back soon. Anyway.
Oh, that's great. She's also excellent.
Brittany, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.